camera. Well, Debbie does. We all have we have a lot of cameras off tonight. So, we're going into February will really be our official kickoff of the new Sugar Shift Challenge season. But one of the things we're actually working on with an outside consultant is taking all of the content from the Sugar Shift Challenge calls and the people who have done educational seminars for us in here and turning that into some online video content that you could access at any time. So if you want to go back and see one of the speakers and also packaging it into some short segments for new people to be able to go back and kind of learn some things that we've already covered here. And so we'll be working on that in the first and second quarter, which we're pretty excited about because we have so much content, but it's not easily accessible for folks. So we're pretty excited about that. And we're working on who's going to be joining us starting in February for our educational seminars. But I have a couple of folks that I have really wanted to get on. One is Dr. Petra Dorsman. She's a naturopath, actually, that I was introduced to many years ago by a Parkinson's patient who I think has one of the deeper understandings of the gut microbiome, the complexity of the whole system. She's also very knowledgeable about the impact of sunlight and also deuterium, which I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but deuterium depleted water and a lot of the research around that. And she does a lot of educational podcasts. So, you may just want to look her up, Dr. Petra. She's been on some of the bigger name podcasts, and she's actually, I think, going to be a co-author of our Parkinson's paper. And so that is, she could also connect some dots there as well.
And then how do you spell her? How do you spell her last name?
Dorfsman.
Okay.
But she also, so she's Dutch. She lives in LA, but her middle name is Davalier. And I don't know, I think that's Davalier, but I'm not positive. So sometimes I see it as Dr. Petra Davalier, but actually I could probably just pull it up for you. And
oh, that's okay. I mean, it'll come up if you search, when you're close. So
yeah. And she's also been a few times. I'm going to have Logan Duvall, and he has a podcast called Growing Prosperity, and I've been on there a few times, and we're trying to schedule an upcoming call to go over our latest clinical trial data on the microbiome. But he has a really interesting podcast. So he is from Arkansas. He has a market, like a small, organic, locally grown market. I think it's called McGee's. It's been a family business for many years, but he got very, very interested in health. I just have bells and whistles going off all over the place over here. He got very interested in health. His 5-year-old son was diagnosed with a very rare kidney cancer, and he dove deeply down the path of trying to understand what was going on there, and through that process also learned a lot about light, which we haven't talked about here, but the impact of light on the human system. I'll say there is actually a physician, eye doctor, actually, named Arturo Solis Herrera, who is in Mexico, who he has a book called Human Photosynthesis. And I found him probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago and started reading his material and had read the work of a gentleman. I think I've mentioned this before. There's a book called Health and Light by a gentleman named John Ott, OTT. And John Ott was the father of photobiology. So he basically discovered, he was a photographer in the 1950s, and he was doing time series photographs for Walt Disney of a pumpkin growing, from a seed. And so he set up this growing operation in a, with lights and cameras and all this, so he could take, back then it wasn't digital. He actually had to take physical images with a flash. And in the process of that, his pumpkin, the first pumpkin, only made male blossoms. And so he couldn't get a pumpkin. And he was trying to figure out why that happened. And he started over. And when he started over, his light bulb burned out. So he had to go buy another light bulb. And when he bought another light bulb, he got a different light spectrum. And that light spectrum actually then resulted in him having only female blossoms on his pumpkin. But then he was able to go find somebody who had a male pumpkin and fertilize his pumpkin and get the pumpkin. But that started him thinking about the lights in his and the effect on the plant. And so then he was photographing, he made a box around an apple blossom and was photographing that. And he started to see like that the apple didn't turn red because the flash that was coming ever so often to take the picture disrupted the coloration. So anyway, over the years, he discovered all of these things about how light had impact on plants, which, I mean, obviously, if you put a plant in the closet with no light, it's not going to grow. But he discovered it changed the, male female ratio of blossoms on the plants. He discovered that you could, he helped mink operations that basically bred animals for mink coats, that he could make them have more females than males by changing the light in the cages where they were kept. And it's really interesting because I think my daughter's husband is a nuclear engineer, and he was on a submarine, and in the preparation process for them going underway, one of the things they talked to him about, I don't remember what she told me they said, but was something about, when they go down in the submarines, they either only have males or they only have females. And I'm just curious, like how many people who are here tonight have heard about the effects of light on us. And of course now, in the last decade, there's been this big push for all these LED lights, which are very, very different than an incandescent bulb. And I follow a Dr. Jack Cruz. He's a little bit obnoxious, but he is a neurosurgeon who has also discovered the connection to light and the melanocortin pathway and obesity. And he does a lot of education on that, but he's also a little difficult to follow because he has a very large ego. But anyway, I'm just curious how many folks have really looked into light and the impact on your health, because what really triggered me to start down this rabbit hole was looking at our microbiome data about 8 years ago and seeing that there were genes involved in photosynthesis. And, I said to, one of the microbiome scientists, well, like there could be photosynthetic bacteria in the gut or photosynthesis could be going on. And his comment to me was, there's no light in the gut. And I said, well, that's not true. Light penetrates, different spectrum of light penetrates tissues. And, of course, there, anyway, I see Debbie's hand is up. So maybe you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. No, mine's really about sunlight. I really made an effort to, because I heard Peter Osborne talking about it's really important to sleep from 10 to 2. Really important to be asleep from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And so then I get up at 5 o'clock every day to make sure I get the sunrise. And so I do sleep a lot better, a lot better. But just on the whole light bulb thing, Dr. Davis was telling us a story about how he, I think he was using LED at his desk and he started having vision issues. And so he changed the light bulbs and it completely cured it. So
yeah, it is pretty amazing. And that, like, I don't do it on the nights, obviously, that I'm doing these calls. But I typically in the evening, I don't have any of these lights on. I have a red light bulb in my lamp over here. And if I watch TV, I don't usually watch TV, but if I do watch a TV show, I have blue light blockers. And a lot of times during the day, if I'm going to be on the video all day, I'll put them. And these glasses actually have blue light blockers in them, but they're not blocking 100% of the light. But I think that the underappreciated piece of that puzzle is the impact of light on the microbiome. And I don't hear people talking about that a lot, but by watching the sunrise and the sunset, that is your primary circadian clock. My bedroom is completely dark. I have no night lights, nothing like that. I close all the doors and windows so that there's no external light. And I think I sleep much, much better that way. But I do think that there is a light impact on the microbiome. And I'd love to see more research. I have seen there's the Weizmann Institute in Israel has a couple of papers on their circadian clock of gut bacteria. And those are pretty interesting. But so I'd love to get somebody on here to talk to us about light. I'm actually trying to get connected to Alexis Cowan. She is I think she got her PhD at Princeton. Her PhD was on something called the fetal cycle, which I have also been very interested in. The fetal cycle is something also in photosynthesis where you get two pathways that are basically feeding into each other and no energy production. And I think that something similar may also be happening in people. And that's actually what Alexis Cowan's PhD was about, but she's now gotten very interested in light and the impact of light and also how that may have impacted most of the published science. So, we have this huge body of scientific papers that have been published, but they're all in laboratories with fluorescent lights and artificial lighting and things that will impact the cells. And the media and the microbes. And so it's almost like we have to start over with a new mindset of all these other variables that have sort of been ignored. So I do want to see, it doesn't look like we have any new, do we have any new people tonight? I don't think we do. So this is the usual suspects. Um, we did have a new person last time, and I think she was looking for the intro, so I was going to give more of the intro tonight, but I'm actually going to do a recorded introduction also of what the Sugar Shift Challenge is. But she was one of the people I think who got the most benefit from Morley. So I don't know how many of you folks were actually on that one. I think a lot of you were, but I think that presentation by Morley and kind of sparking her remembering the things that she needed to do as somebody who has hemochromatosis, probably will have a significant impact on her health potentially. And I think that's another thing that's really underappreciated. So Jen, it looks like you've got your hand up. How's your knee?
Oh, thank you. I'm driving right now, so sorry. I'm in the car. I'm not gonna
That's okay.
get just too distracted with video, but thanks for asking. I'm at 110-degree bend right now, so it's small wins here, but it's healing. It's annoying now. The novelty is worn off. I'm ready to just be me again, but it's going to take really like a year to heal. So
yeah,
doing the L-Reuteri and doing my sugar shift and all the things that we know, including red light therapy. So I have two things. Anecdotally, as we've intensified our conversations about circadian rhythm and light, and Dr. Davis is kind of doing this in parallel with you. I made a decision to buy a bunch of kerosene lamps in my house because beautiful candles are so expensive. And these kerosene lamps are such a pleasure. Like the light in them is so gorgeous. And they make a smoke-free kerosene. So just this liquid fuel that is super easy. It doesn't smell. And I just have to say, I think I'm sleeping well, having more of that. And then, we can use red light to kind of help mitigate some of the damage from LEDs, but then some of the red light devices are LED. So I want to talk about, and I want to ask you about how can we vet red light products well? Because we all know that there's marketing in this field, and the marketing can be so persuasive.
Well, it's really interesting because this flicker rate, which I think is one of the main things that you really have to look for. You don't see a lot of that advertised on the different sites, so you really have to like dig. And Pam, you can unmute yourself.
MitoRed is actually talking about the flicker rate as well as the light spectrum and the different programs that they've have in their lights now to address that component that you're talking about right there, Martha. So I've found that as a company, they're diving a little bit deeper. Other than that, Gary Brecka, Ultimate Human podcast, he just did his Inner Circle today, which I'm a part of. And when he did his Inner Circle, he's in the process of building out the top end light right now. I mean, he's really good at figuring out where the trends are going and getting ahead of them, right? And normally those lights are going to be like 18,000, but he's talking about being able to bring one to market for like 3,500. So
still very pricey though.
That is very, very pricey. Now the MitoRed light, which I like, and then the other company I know that is kind of going out after it is Robbie with his company Therasage. I know Robbie's work. Yeah, I know Robbie well. Robbie is also doing some decent work with his light spectrum stuff too, and is trying to get after and get on top of it. So MitoRed and Therasage are the two companies that I've seen that are kind of going after it. And when it comes to the light bulbs and the blue light blockers and stuff like that, Block Blue Light is a company now that is actually developing different types of light bulbs, one of which actually it changes throughout the day. So it goes from full spectrum light to the non-blue spectrum when it hits dusk. So it has a sensor in it, and the light literally changes throughout the day as the sunlight would change. Now, I'm sure it's nowhere near as good as the sun, but it's a step moving in the right direction. And then, of course, they've got other light bulbs that you can get that are strictly no blue light in them, in the amber tones. And they also have the red light bulbs that are in the appropriate tones there. I'm a big fan, like what you said, Jen, of the kerosene lamps and also doing candles. So I still love that the best, but there are some other tools out there that might be helpful to you guys.
I
That's
went
great.
over Christmas. I went to because I was talking to my son, and he's like, "Well, why don't we just go to the pet store and get the lizard lights?" And so I'll show you. I have hanging over my, so this lamp right here is the wrong kind of light, you can see. And so I bought myself a little lizard lamp, and when I went to the checkout, the lady at PetSmart, she's like, "Oh, what kind of lizard do you have?" And my son said, "You're looking at her," which was hilarious. So anyway, I have a red light bulbs that I bought from Midwest, I think is who it is. They also have their lower cost, but for me, because I have reading glasses, or I have a prescription, it's very hard to deal with all those different shades of blue light blockers. So I just get the inexpensive ones that I can drop in behind my glasses as the light goes on. But I mean, really, you're better off if you can get your light from the natural light, follow that cycle. It really is a stinker in the wintertime when there's no sun, or you have to get up at the very, very early hours in order to actually see the sunrise. But that actually is the best approach. And there are a couple of folks from my root cause protocol group who were having circadian rhythm problems, I'll say. And when she started just standing outside for 10 to 15 minutes in the morning as the sun was rising, and 10 to 15 minutes before the sunset, within a week's time, her circadian clock was significantly improved, and she just couldn't believe it. So I think light is very important. Mary Ramos, where are you? Well, I don't see her there. Her hand is up, so we'll get her when she comes back. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, I was cutting my dog's food up. I bought a full spectrum LED light bulb. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. Ridiculous expensive. I only bought one because I have an issue with my I have 5 LEDs above me that are driving me crazy. So
yeah. These are floodlights, I think.
Yeah, mine are just regular light bulbs, but they're a 60-watt LEDs, and they hurt my eyeballs. So I bought this one. I haven't tried it yet. It's from Bond Charge. Also, the
I have heard of it. Yeah,
yeah. I have some new extra strength blue light blocking. I've been wearing my blue light blocking glasses a lot during the day. I find it very annoying to wear glasses since I don't really need glasses. So,
well, I do think though, you can't, like, you do want blue light during the middle of the day. So it's not a great idea to always. There's also, you can get a red filter on your iPhone. It's a little tricky, but you go into, I'll find the video and attach that to the follow-up from this.
okay.
at least I know I have a video of how to do it on an iPhone. And so for me, like, this is what my phone looks like without the filter. And then I push
Is that for?
and that's what it looks like with the filter now. You can see it has it's filtering out the blue light.
And you use that at night?
So I have it on when I get up in the morning, if I'm going to look at my phone at all in the first hour or two.
Oh,
And then like around 10 or 11 o'clock, I turn it off and let the blue light in for, most of the afternoon, and then I'll turn it back on.
okay. Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask you about the blue light. We need blue light, and it's in the afternoon that we need it.
Well, the blue light spectrum is kind of your midday.
Midday,
Like
10 to 2.
There's also, I forget the name of the company, but when I have Logan on here, Logan can talk a bit about, there's a gentleman who has started a company to make computers that are natural light computers. They are not these
Crazy LEDs, screens.
crazy LEDs and blue light toxic. And I think he just sold out of his first batch of like 20,000 computers or something. But and he's also working on a phone and like iPad type technologies as well. So, but one of the other things I think about, and when I heard Dr. Callan speak, she was talking about how
Just
we
a
need-
minute, wait. My
we
dog
need-
is
we need to get more active in getting the government to turn back these regulations, because right now, I forget what is the deadline, 2026 or 2027, where all the incandescent bulbs go away.
No, they changed that. I just heard it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, okay. It was on the internet, but he was doing he was talking about, is that correct, Pamela?
What?
Because there was a guy saying that they had, what's the word, overturned it, withdrew it, or they weren't going to do that anymore.
I'm actually looking it up for you right now. I will
Oh,
give
okay.
you the real-time answer very shortly.
Okay.
But I do think that it is, that's something we need to make more people aware of and really start pressing for it. And I went into Lowe's looking for an incandescent light bulb. You can't find an incandescent light bulb at Lowe's. You can still order them on Amazon, but that's a whole nother challenge. But
I
Paula,
tried there, but I couldn't find a 60-watt light bulb for my fixture on Amazon. Yeah, everything came up LED.
yeah.
Now Jen found a website with the LED with the incandescent light bulbs, but I accidentally closed that window and I haven't been able to find it again.
Well, find her how she sent it to you.
Yeah, if
It was
I,
on
You or email it to
Dr.
you.
Dave.
Out of her car, we'll get the link from her again, and we'll give you the link.
yeah, if
Yeah,
I can
because
get
it was during Dr.
Fine.
Davis's thing, and so I did the click during the meeting, and then when our meeting ended, I lost it. So
Oh.
yeah, you'll send it again, Jen.
I sure will.
Thank
And I'm finding individual light bulbs here and there on Amazon. And I just have to say, so I thought I ordered like a pack of light bulbs. No, I ordered a single 100-watt incandescent light bulb on Amazon. And I had to sign for it when it was delivered to me.
Oh my,
So strange.
And how
Very,
did it
very
cost?
hard to find.
Welcome to 1984.
Yes, 1984.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just trying to buy them up wherever I can. But yeah, when I get in front of my computer, Mary, I'll post that link here.
So we actually started noticing it with my husband, John. The lights in the hallway were, those crazy LED, super blue lights. And anytime he turned to go down that hallway, he froze. And when I changed the light bulbs out, it made a huge difference in his ability to walk down the hall. And
Wow.
actually, we first noticed it. I mean, we didn't notice it in our house at first, I'll say. We noticed it going to Costco. So essentially, as we would walk up to the door at Costco, when those doors would open and the light would come down on him, he would freeze. So he could not go into a Costco. And we're like, that's the light spectrum in there. So we started noticing these places where we would go that would just basically turn him off. And it was, it was the light spectrum. So Pam, your hands up.
January 21st, 2025, President Trump signed the Unleashing American Energy Executive Order, reversing the 2023 ban and permitting the manufacture and sale of incandescent light bulbs once again.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Okay, Paula, your hand's been up. I don't know. Where are you? You're down there with the T.
Yep. Hey, you guys. Well, I'm big on lights. Let me show you what I have on my desk, for example. So first of all, I have this guy.
Salt lamp. Is that a salt light?
It's a salt lamp for, the Himalayas. You have to have it for the mood early in the morning. Then during the night, if I wake up, this is what I turn on. Do you see the red light? The duck?
Oh, yeah. It's a duck. I love it.
Well, and of course, if I work, there will be a really strong light. Not that strong, it's a touch. Well, it depends what I need for. And then I have a mood lamp that changes colors. And I found myself really attached to different type of lights. But the big light that I'm attached to, and my zodiac sign actually, it's connected to the sun. The sun is, I cannot live without it. Every morning, wake up, go outside for 10 minutes just to be on the sun. And that keeps my sleep pretty calm, I will say. And during the day, I expose myself to every light, ultraviolet, red light, everything. I think we benefit from everything, especially light, period, because I used to live in Vancouver in Canada and Seattle. Oh my gosh, it's
Lots of
horrible.
clouds.
It's horrible. It's
You know,
not
it's
that raining, but the gloominess of 9.5 months, it kills the mood for everything.
well, I had friends from Colorado who moved to Seattle, and she took a job there. And actually, I saw them this weekend at John's service, and we were talking about when they moved, because I was saying how rainy it had been, so rainy and cloudy here in Kentucky in December and January. It was just, it just really pulled you down. And he said they finally left. She quit her job because he could not live there.
Yeah.
He said, it just one
It's
day.
so depressing.
there
It's
for like
really
3 months.
depressing.
Yeah, he just sat down on the steps and started to cry. And
Yeah.
he said, I'm a grown man. Like, why am I sitting here crying? I can't function. I can't do anything. And, they went back to Colorado to the sunlight.
Because we need light, period. We do. We don't supposed to live like that. And I have a red light, actually, a small one. I'm keeping it here in my desk. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big one. It has to be, yeah, that big, not expensive at all. And just, I did a lot of research on it. You don't have to take your clothes off. Actually, it goes through the clothes, even couple of layers of clothing. Some is even better than other, but I don't remember the research exactly. I just read it and I said, okay, I don't have to be naked. And you expose yourself for a couple of minutes. I do 3 minutes. The suggestion is after a minute and a half, you don't get any benefits. It doesn't have to, you don't have to stay in the bed or whatever. People are doing crazy things about it, but and I find it very helpful for my knee. Very helpful. I mean, I expose myself for 3 minutes and then I walk so much better than before. And I don't have to expose my knee. They say that actually our cells are like transporters, and you expose yourself somewhere and they talk to each other. But I do expose my knee kind of in my pants. And I don't put any glasses, but I don't, of course, look at the light directly, because the only proven thing is actually about how beneficial it is to the eyes and to the vision, I mean. Yeah. So why not? So this is my experience with the red light. I don't know about the eyes though. Well,
Well,
good so far. Yeah.
I am very excited if I can get Dr. Callan on here, because I find her extremely interesting. And one of the things that she talked to Dr. Jack Cruz about is the difference between what's called an uncoupled and a coupled mitochondria haplotype, or basically people with pale skin versus people with dark skin. And Alexis is, like, one of her parents is African American and the other is Caucasian. So she kind of has the best of both worlds, where like somebody like John, who is very pale and Northern European, is quite different. And this is the book by Dr. Solis Herrera, The Human Photosynthesis. It's English is not his first language, so the translation into English, before there were tools to help with that, is not perfect. But it's very interesting book. And in chapter 14 of the book, he actually talks about how the color of the skin, and I need to go back and do a little more research on this, because I probably read this book 6 or 7 years ago. But he says that people with fair skin have higher, fair skin, the mitochondria number increases until 83%. So basically 83% more mitochondria in fair skinned people than in dark skin.
Yeah, maybe like with the ultraviolet light, this is how it is with the red light as well. I don't know. Well, nobody's claiming this. But
So, we have all this focus nowadays in the biohacking world about the mitochondria. But
yeah, everybody wants to do. Yeah.
some of that, depending on your skin, your skin type, may really have a bigger impact on, one segment of the population than the other. Pam, it looks like your hand's up again.
I think one of the key things to look at, especially when we go back to remembering, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Okay, so first of all, we have the highest number per capita of serial killers in the world,
Yeah.
coming out of the Pacific Northwest. A lot
Right.
of people don't know that. I happen to know it because my father was a prosecuting attorney, and he actually tracked down a few of those serial killers when I was a kid. So it was kind of wild times. The other component that really goes into this is the electromagnetic frequency component. So when we start looking at light, I think of not just light, I think of sound, I think of electromagnetic frequencies. And I think the three of them intersecting together is really the core component. And what's really funny, Martha, is if you go back to a scriptural perspective, it talks about, be careful about what you let your eyes see, your ears hear, right? And some of those components. So it's just, I think that as we move forward, especially with the intersection of what's happening with AI, like right now, there are AI interfaces. Like, let's say you get on customer service with something, right? And you're talking to the interface for the customer service. They are actually monitoring your vocal tone to consider whether or not you would be a good customer to upsell to. And they will upsell to you based upon your vocal tone. So knowing that we're rapidly sliding into this level, I think that the real core component is we just are going to have to become super aware of what do we allow our eyes to see, what do we allow our ears to hear, and what do we allow around us for electromagnetic frequencies.
So that's a great point to make. And also, I'm going to have to go back. I don't know if we actually recorded that one, but anybody who's in the book club, we did the, it's called the Electric Rainbow, I think.
You're talking about Furstenberg's work?
I'm sorry, The Invisible Rainbow, The History of Electricity and Life. I think we covered that book.
He just finished another one. Arthur
he
Furstenberg, he just wrote another book. It
What-
literally, let me pull it up here first real quick. It just came out like last week. The Earth and I.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at it.
Let's see.
But
Yeah, just published it this month.
The Invisible Rainbow is really the history of electricity and the change in the electromagnetic spectrum. And that was something, we were also looking at quite a bit with John, because the impact of electromagnetic waves. And I have an app. I don't know if I might have showed it to people during the here, I'm going to turn the red light off, but it's called The Architecture of Radio, a 360-degree view of, and I don't know if you'll be able to, but see there, those are all the waves. So see those waves coming? That's probably my Wi-Fi.
Martha, what app is that?
It's called The Architecture of Radio. I think it's kind of expensive. I think it costs like for an app. It's I think it's like $10, but I got it several years ago. And what I can tell you is, like, here, I live out in the country, but I can see off in the distance, there's a military base over there.
$3.
Okay, so it's gone down. And I can see a lot of the, there's a lot of towers or, things over at the military base. And then, there's not a lot here. And then I see over at where my brother lives, and he's a computer guy and he has a lot of stuff. And then my internet service is broadcast off his property, and I can see that coming at me in waves. And it's very interesting because here, I live out in the country, but there's still lots of waves around me, but it's nothing like what we were surrounded with in Colorado. We had a a 5G tower that was like, right up the street. We were just at the bottom of a hill where there were a bunch of broadcast towers. And of course, if you live in an apartment complex or anything like that, they've got, everybody's got a Wi-Fi and everybody's got something. So, it's just things like that to be mindful of. And my son actually has a Faraday cage. He hasn't been sleeping, and I keep telling him to go back and sleep in it. But it's basically you buy it, and there's a base that you put under your bed, and then there's a thing that hangs from the ceiling, and you zip yourself into it, and it shuts out all it's a Faraday cage that shuts out all electromagnetic frequencies.
Joe Mercola actually produced a sleeping tent that I used to use when I had to travel. That was a complete Faraday cage, and you could really feel the difference. The issue is that it would get very stifling to sleep in it all night. And that was the real drawback of that particular one. If you're looking for something that's more permanent solution, what I've used with a lot of people that I've worked with is I've actually had them get the mat that goes underneath the bed, and then the entire, like, it looks like the mosquito net.
Yeah, that's what Charlie's is. Charlie's like that. But he says, sometimes he has trouble falling asleep in that. And I'm wondering, we're probably supposed to be getting some kind of electromagnetic signals. And so if you're totally shut into a Faraday cage, you're not getting.
Here's what I would suggest. This is because I had the same thing with other people, Martha, and here's what we did, and it worked, is I had them sleep on a PEMF mat. And so we did the PEMF mat at the Schumann frequency, and then they'd sleep much better.
That sounds like a much better. For anybody who doesn't know what the Schumann frequency is, that's basically the frequency of the earth. And that is, Martha and her weird apps. I also have a Schumann app that I look at what's happening to the Schumann frequency on the planet. And it has, the one I use has two different metrics. One is in Cumiana, Italy, and the other one is in Tomsk. I think Tomsk is in Russia. And they measure slightly differently, but they do show you, what's going on or what's been going on. And it's interesting. So like, this is like the last week. And if you look at it, there's definitely some blips and things that go on with the Earth's frequency that are kind of, potentially disruptive from a health perspective. So, not that you need a bunch of other things to keep track of, but I do think all of these factors, frequency, light, everything is ultimately impacting your gut. And we know from making our yogurt, like all the crazy things that impact our yogurt making. And I have thought about that as well when I make my yogurt and I have the yogurt maker on my stove and the overhead light stay, if I leave it on at night versus if it's dark in there, I'm like, I wonder how that's affecting the yogurt making. Looks like Norma Jean, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, when you were talking about those frequency changes, is that like from solar flares or that from something else? Not solar flares?
That's not solar flares. You will get electromagnetic activity from solar flares. I'm not, Pam, do you know more about the?
Yeah, actually, Martha, this is someone you may want to have on, the physician medical officer for NASA who discovered the Schumann frequency. His clinic's right here up north in Colorado.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, I should get you connected to him because he'd be a good interview to have. And that might be helpful to you. The Schumann frequency, for lack of a better way to put it, is like the groaning of the earth. It is from within the earth. It is the frequency that is generated from the earth itself. The earth kind of has its own biorhythm, for lack of a better way to term to put it, where it will, you'll see that biorhythm shifting up and down and things like that. And for the last several years, it's had a lot more volatility than it did in, say, prior to 2000 timeframe. It was, pretty rhythmic back then, but lately it's like up, down, up, down, up, down. And of course, there's all sorts of theories as to why that is, especially with some of the military technology that, we've got going on now, and all the crazy stuff that happens with our military, which my husband was a part of for a while. So I think it's just, in all of our great levels of intelligence, we keep thinking that we're best off messing with things.
So
It's just crazy.
so it's not like from like the lava and everything swishing around. Like I know that the magnetic poles have moved and they changed.
Magnetic poles have shifted, and of course we know from history that there's been a flip of magnetic pole, and
Yeah,
that
About
and,
every
and I'm going to get out of my area of expertise here, so give me some grace, guys. But I understand we are past due or coming up on time for another magnetic pole shift now. And then, of course, my son is a pilot. And of course, it's really funny because, of course, magnetic north keeps shifting. And it's really funny because they keep having to readjust with with some of the runways in some of the locations, because the pilots have to constantly adjust for where the runway is actually at based upon a mag north versus true north. And one of the things that's really wild is when you look at the old, this is one of the areas that my husband dealt with on when we were managing a 1,200 acre property, and we were having to look at fence lines. Well, the geoengineering guys thought they'd be helpful and come out and map the fence lines. Well, you can very clearly see, here's the old fence line. It's been there for, a century. And what would happen is they would go ahead and they try to use their magnetic north and and the fence line was like literally 20 feet off. But yet you could certainly see, and if we had not had the actual engineer, survey with the cornerstone stakes, they would have made us move the fences. It's crazy.
Well, I was actually reading about the magnetic pole shift, and it's weird because it's not even consistent from year to year. It's like some years it moves like 21 miles or maybe not miles, maybe it was feet. I can't remember exactly. And some years it was like a lot less. And then
so a lot of you guys know Raul. Raul actually taught a course when he was a professor at Cal Poly a few times. I'm not sure how many times he taught it, but he actually taught it on looking at the data, like the microbial populations in the core samples, where you could see how the shifts impacted, the land core microbiome, I guess was. So we had some interesting discussions around that. So, but
I think they just did the longest core sample in the Antarctic recently. And they were talking about how, I don't know that they fully examined the whole thing, but my husband used to work in Antarctica a long time ago. So
I bet that was interesting.
It was freezing cold.
Yeah. I had, when I did my TED talk, one of the people who was in the panel with me was a scientist who went to Antarctica to do some kind of sampling. I need to go back and look at the year that I did my TED talk and who the other people. I mean, it was a long time ago. It was 2016. I can't believe that was 8 years ago, but it was interesting. Debbie, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so I was wondering, when you guys are talking about these radio frequencies, does that have anything to do with the grounding mats and the grounding sheets? Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I mean, grounding, you're getting electrons to ground yourself. And so what I would say, and Pam may be better suited to say this than I am, but like Of course, again, I have these apps that tell me what's going on, and like one of them will tell me this, like this solar wind or proton density. So if you know protons and electrons, you're always kind of trying to balance out redox. So grounding is actually helping you balance out redox. What I will say, my personal experience with grounding mats has not been good. I do know there are tools that you can use to take care of the dirty electricity, but
You need to be
most
careful with
often-
even those.
yeah,
Oh, really? I just
Just walk barefoot on the grass.
yes, walk barefoot outside, because I had a grounding mat and I slept on it for, I'll say it was about a month, and I started having joint pain, and I've never had joint pain. And I was like, I wonder if it's that grounding mat. And
Well, Martha,
I got rid of the grounding mat, and it went away. And so that was in a totally different house. Let me finish the story, Ben.
yeah.
And then, you know, we moved here to the cabin, and I got the grounding mat out again, and you know, plugged it in, and within a week I started having joint pain. I was like, oh, I remember that was the same thing that happened before when I used this grounding mat. I'm like, not using this grounding mat. And so then I started looking into more into the dirty electricity. Now, what did you want to say, Pam?
Well, I actually had them come in, had a building biologist come in and specifically test the entire house, test the grounding mat, test everything. Okay. This is not in my barn dominium I'm in now. This is in my prior house. And here's what we found: that there was no way to get the house quiet due to my neighbor's solar panels. And the neighbor's solar panels was creating so much chaos in the electrical current that the only way to get it quiet was to literally shut off the electricity at the main. Shutting off the bedroom didn't do it. I had to shut off the electricity at the main. The grounding mat, actually, because there was so much dirty electricity coming through the electrical outlet, it was making it worse. So we thought, okay, fine. What happens if we try a stake outside the window into the ground? So we did a stake outside the window into the ground. Now in Europe, this is not an issue. Okay, because Europe handles their electricity differently. They don't.
They have direct current, don't they?
Well, there's that, and there's the component that they do not return the electricity to the ground outside. In the United States, we keep returning electricity to the ground outside. So in all of our new neighborhoods where all these houses are being built right next to each other, you've got a whole bunch of dirty electricity in the actual ground itself. So going to stake the ground outside was not any benefit either. And we figured out that the best thing we could do was shut off the electricity at the main and not ground the bed at all. And other than that, when it came to the go barefoot outside, it was don't go barefoot outside in your neighborhood. It was go out to the country to go barefoot outside, because of all of the dirty electricity that was in this neighborhood. Now, this is a neighborhood that was built fairly recently. So we literally sold the house, sold everything, moved out to a 40-acre property out in the country where I can ground all the time.
So, so right now I'm in Wyoming, and so there's 2 feet of snow on the ground. So it's not that I can go walk outside, but I was just thinking of starting it. I have a vibration mat that I like to use, that's different. But I just thought that the grounding mat might be good to use.
I would use a positive electromagnetic frequency mat, a PEMF mat. I would literally set it to the Schumann frequency, and that's what I would use if I were in a situation. It's winter here in Colorado right now, obviously.
Yeah.
And days like today were great, and the temperature was like up to 40-some degrees. And so, yeah, absolutely. I went outside onto the pavement around my house, and it was actually quite pleasant because the sun was shining, and it can be the same in Wyoming as well.
Yeah.
But on those days where you've got just total solid snow and stuff like that, yeah, just use your PEMF mat. Those were great.
So what is the name of that? Spell that.
PEMF mat. There's several of them out there. The company that I got mine from, I can send a link to it. but I think it was called Healthy Mat. And the reason why that company was recommended by Dr. Lee Cowden, and the reason why I like that particular company is, first of all, they'll let you try the mat for 90 days, which I love. And then they'll take it back, no questions asked. Number two, if you ever want to upgrade your mat, they'll give you up to 50% of the value of a new mat. You can send your old mat back in and get another new mat. And there's another company that's very similar to them called Healthy Line. I would not get my mat from them. They don't have any of those benefits, but it's the exact same mat. And they're like, you know, a company that's huge that everyone knows.
Healthy Wave, Matt? Is that who
That's
it is?
it. That's
Okay.
it.
So
And
healthy
I
weight
think
is
I've
bad.
actually got, Martha, I think I even have a discount code for them that people can get a discount on it that that I use for my patient population that I work with.
So the healthy mat is a good company.
The Healthy Wave mat is a good company.
Here it is right here.
And like I said, I can pull it up. Let me check here real quick, but I think I've got a discount code that'll get you some money off the mat.
Okay. So
And I'm
the
not, and I've got an affiliate with them, but that's not why I'm sharing that here. But if it'll get you a discount, great.
yeah, no, so the one that the grounding mat is coming because I just ordered it, and it has a 90-day guarantee. Too. I know my brother has grounding sheets and sleeps on them all the time. So
Yeah, but you see the grounding sheets, the way all of those work is they have to go to ground somehow. So they're either going to ground through an electrical outlet or they're going to ground through a stake outside. Are measuring what the impact is, or unless you're, you know, intuitively sensitive like Martha is and get joint pain, you're not going to know. And that's, you know, so for me, I'm one of those people that's like, you know, like Martha's really good, like, okay, test.
Yeah, no, I like to, I mean, I do 1,000 tests. I mean, I really like to test things and see if they help, you know.
I just sent Martha the code for the mat, which should give you a discount on it. But the other thing I would look out for, just so you know, because I mean, they're not cheap, right? But one of the things you can do is they do have mats that other people have sent back, and you can get additional 20% off their open box mats. So people who like did a mat for like 60 days or whatever and decided that they didn't want to keep it and they sent it back. They have really good prices on those open box mats. Martha, it's just the link itself. If you click on what I just sent you, it will then take you into the website automatically with the link, and then you get the discount automatically, I think, is the way they work it. But they do have a series of great mats. What I've done is I got the 5 therapy multi-wave mat, which is their most expensive one. But that's because I frequently am dealing with cancer patients. And what I'll do is I'll immediately start having them use the mat until they can get their own.
Really? So that helps cancer patients?
Yes, from multiple angles, and that will take us way off this conversation, so I don't want to do that.
No, I have a friend. Well, no, I have a no, I mean,
but
I have a friend who's basically was, you know, told to go to palliative care. And
I've had a few of those. I've had several of those I've been working with, and actually we've had like stage 4 lung cancer completely reverse in 3 months. Now that's a very complex topic that's also very simple. There's several components in that. Martha will tell you all that. But part of one of the reason why I like that 5 therapy mat is because I can literally program for square or sine wave. I can also control the heat level. I can also get the negative ion therapy and all that type of stuff in there. And here's the number one thing with cancer patients. They're always cold. You have to get their body warmed up so that their immune system wakes up and they can heal. And that's one of the reasons why I like the PEMF mats is they energize them and give them heat at the same time.
Gets them heated up for sure.
And I will tell you that that was way far gone. his energy levels massively increased, and he started sleeping through the night as soon as we put the mat under him.
Really? Hmm.
It was a big difference. It was a big difference. So
Is a Beamer in that category?
it is
Yeah.
absolutely. It's the
Yeah.
the thing with the Beamers is they're just, how do I put it? This Healthy Wave mat is everything the Beamer is at a lower price point. The difference is the Beamer they've done a great job in, publishing all the research and stuff like that. And when I talked to Cowden about it, Dr. Cowden, he told me to get these instead of the Beamers.
Great. That's because somebody had talked to us about a Beamer years ago, and they were very expensive. I don't know what the price point is now, but they're
over $5K. This
yeah,
one
yeah.
here
like
at top,
$2,500 or something.
Yeah.
this one here, top price on this one is they go between $995 to $3,900, but I love the fact that you can get them in different sizes. So like, I don't have the big one because we could still do everything we need to do without going all the way to the big one, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to have you covered from absolutely head to toe in order to get the benefit. And that takes down the price point there.
Yeah.
But they have the far infrared, the negative ion, the crystal energy, the red light, the PEMF, all in one. That's why I like them.
So that's the 5 therapy one.
That's that 5 therapy multi-wave. And then my second favorite, just for the, that works really well is they've got that 5 therapy high intensity mat. Because it can go from a 0.25 to 30 hertz. And it also has a lot of variability to it. And it's half the price. The only thing you're really losing there is you don't have a square wave. And most people don't need that. And you can set the pulse duration. So Martha, I think I might be is like almost tomato from the pulse rate.
Yeah.
It really feels like it's the same thing, whether it's light or it's the pulsation waves. It feels like it's the same as far as the impact on the body.
Yeah. So who does need a square wave? Because I have a Rife machine that the frequency selector on it. I actually gave it to a scientist at DU to work with the engineering department, and they played around with it a bit, and they added a new box to it that did square waves, sine waves, and I was like, well, like, who wants a square wave?
Dr. Cowden actually did a lot of research into the square wave, and the square wave, the cancer patients. And I think, let me see if I can find the research on it here real quick.
Okay, that's interesting because actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I had somebody okay, you people are going to think I'm crazy. Well, wait, you probably already do think I'm crazy. So I had somebody that had some sound technology that made 2 different frequencies for me back in 2021 or 2022. I still have the frequencies. One was called DNA repair, and the other one was basically to undo the vaccine. And so I had a friend who had multiple myeloma, and she had come into town to do her stem cell. Like, they have to like give you these shots and you grow more stem cells, and then they harvest your stem cells. And so she was staying with us, and her doctors had made her get the vaccine because she had cancer. which seemed kind of crazy to me because your immune system is compromised then. So why would you do that? But anyway, so I had this conversation with her, and I said, I don't know, do you want to try these sound waves? And so I plugged in the little antenna and I played the DNA repair one, and she said, oh, I love how that feels. And then I turned on the one that was for the vaccine, and she was like, ooh, I mean, she could like feel it in her body. And then I started coughing, and she's like, get on the other side of the room. And I said, why? She said,
Because you were off gassing big time.
yes. So she said, you're coughing because something is coming out of me and it's affecting you. Get across the room. And I moved across the room and it stopped. And
yeah, Martha, I dealt with that a lot. There's something that they used to call the fat blaster that they would use on patients at the cancer clinic I was at down in Mexico. And you could not even walk into the room after they ran the fat blaster on those cancer patients. It was like, you felt like you couldn't breathe. And it was literally shockwave therapy that was being done that was causing massive detoxification. And what's really wild is I ended up using EC3 because these were cancer patients who also had mold. Okay. Big surprise there, right? And so we would go in there and I would literally use the EC3 fogger and fog the room. And what was wild is the nurses didn't speak English, but I just, gave hand motions and they walked in the room and they're like this, and they would come out of the room real quick. And then I sprayed it with EC3 and they walked in, they all started laughing because the room shifted.
I forget what EC3 is. I remember that, but I can't.
EC3 is made by Microbalance, and it's completely organic. It's based off of a citrus oil combination. It's a proprietary formula. And what it does is it literally knocks out not just the mold spores, but the mycotoxins. And that's really the key, is lowering the mycotoxin content, because that's what really causes a lot of the reactivity when we walk into a space, is we'll react to those mycotoxins. It's like our microbiome starts going to war with the microbiome that's in the space, and like we're, us humans just happen to get in the way. So it made a huge difference. Now, according to what I'm looking at, for musculoskeletal conditions, it's known as shockwave therapy, good for bone healing, pain management, good for calcific tendonitis, sports injuries, neurological conditions, urological conditions. It's being studied for all of those. And it's also really good at reducing pain by hyperstimulation. So like people who have chronic fatigue.
You're talking about?
Yep, that's all from the square wave. And I just sent you an article from Clemson. I haven't had a chance to dig into it yet, but they're doing, evidently Clemson's really starting to get into doing the research on it. So.
Okay, I'll post that here too. I just posted a link to the EC3. Now I remember what that was. My daughter's best friend actually rented a house in Fort Collins, Colorado, and started getting sick, and her boyfriend started getting sick, and basically he got to where he couldn't come over to the house, and then she finally figured out that it had this terrible mold problem, and anyway, she was eventually able to get out. But I just told her, I was like, you got to get out of there right now, and I think she was using EC3 also. So
yeah, EC3 really was a game changer when we went through our mold situation. It made all the difference in the world. People keep talking about using ozone. And what I learned from ozone is that, ozone works great to get rid of the mold spores, but the mold spores will cast off all these mycotoxins as they're, trying to save themselves. And it would make it much worse. And I still see a lot of people out there, use ozone. And I'm like, not without using the EC3, because of the fact that you're going to run into all of those issues.
Interesting. Well, Jen, you had your hand up, but it's not up now. Did you have something, Jen?
Oh, just to rewind a minute to the conversation about EMFs and PEMF. Um, I am wondering, Pamela, you're quite an expert on this.
I don't
And
consider an expert, but yeah.
well, I use a Beamer, full disclosure, and I don't sell Beamer. I'm not, these MLMs drive me crazy. Um,
I agree.
and so, but I'm curious, I'm accepting the fact that hopefully Beamer is helping mitigate the effects of EMFs because I'm surrounded by it. Thank you to the Architecture of Radio app that helped me see like, oh my gosh, what's going on. But then there are devices like the Harmony pendant and all these sort of blockers.
Airs technology.
Well,
Aries, yeah,
and
wave block. But
I won't claim to be an expert on this, but I have spent a lot of time in this area with highly sensitive people. I used to be highly sensitive. I used to be so sensitive that I literally lived out in a tent in the middle of nowhere. I was one of those super crazy people for a little while. Till I learned what it meant to know my identity and my authority and how to do the things to actually heal. A lot of those blockers really work, and I don't know how to explain this. Some of them are garbage, some really work. Some have, I don't know how to explain this, and Martha knows how crazy I am, but some actually feel like they have hitchhikers.
Yeah.
Like there's something else on it, like the Harmony pendant. I'm like, keep it away from me. I don't know why, but there's
Okay.
something
So I'm
about
glad
it
you
that
said that.
really doesn't resonate with me at all, and it just feels off. Now I'm going to show you one here that is not the case. This is called an Aries Tech. What this is this is a fractal antenna, and the BiotiQuest is another. That one right there is another one that Martha just showed you. But there's a fractal antenna in here. I carry it next to my cell phone, and what's really wild is I've had people who are highly sensitive who have come into my house, who've been around me or whatever, and they're like, oh, I just feel so peaceful. And I'd like to say it's my charming personality, but I actually think it's probably this. So it's called Aries Tech. You can look it up.
Familiar.
And look at all the data.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, and that might be the way to go. But interesting that you talk about hitchhikers. When I was talking to someone here locally about it, they said that there's this idea that these what are supposed to block EMFs actually attract EMFs. And
really?
so like the grounding sheets are notorious for this, which is terrifying. So how do you how do you know who's the expert here?
Being one of those, people who used to be highly sensitive, and I really have a lot of respect for Arthur Furstenberg, but I think there's a significant difference and it's a blessing and it's a problem at the same time. Arthur is so sensitive that he still totally is not able to go in those environments. I can actually go into like big cities, spend some time there, do what I gotta do, get back out, and I'm fine. And I'm thankful for that because I don't ever want to feel like I'm a prisoner of my environment, because that's not how I was created to be. But I find that if I get quiet and I just feel, I can tell. Does that make sense? You can just tell. You can tap into who you were created to be, what your identity is. You can tap into that and just say, do I feel like I'm at peace or not? And if it doesn't give you peace, get it away from you. And the name of this RF blocker, and it's not a blocker, okay? It is a modulator. It pulls the signal out of phase. It's different. I mean, I always give this horrible example that my son beats me up for every time, but it actually does kind of work. The opera singer who sings a note and shatters the glass, right? Well, if you change her tone just a tiny bit, it no longer can shatter the glass. That's what this does. So you're no longer fracturing the voltage gated calcium channels. And it's called Aries Tech, AIRES Tech.
Great.
think I've got a link for that too, that my clients all get when they're part of my stuff that I do. But maybe that'll help.
Okay. So you're not aware of technology that actually inadvertently draws EMFs to the thing that we think is protecting us. You're
I
saying
have not
test it on yourself.
I have not done the research on the patents and things like that to be able to answer that conclusively. I would say based upon the patterns that I'm seeing, I certainly wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'm
no,
not. Oh,
I-
go ahead.
You know, I would say, Jen, just based on quantum physics and quantum entanglement,
Mhm.
yes, things can attract. You can attract things maybe you don't want to attract.
Yeah.
So then we perhaps need something that is there a device that measures, like an accurate device that measures EMFs, dirty,
I mean,
There are.
Yeah, I have a handheld. You can.
Yeah, and actually I've got like a few different devices, and we do some low level building biology work with our clients' homes and things like that. So we have gone in and assessed their homes and things. And then there's this other crazy component of, the best sensor out there, but you have to be careful about whether or not you really want to turn this on. The best sensor out there is you. It really is.
I'm
you
not.
can-
I wish I were as sensitive as you guys. I'm
no,
actually
you
not.
don't.
No, you don't want to.
You
You don't want to
really
be
don't.
overly sensitive. But you know what?
It's not good.
Like, I mean, I talk to customers a lot about, diet or our products or whatever, and
Yeah.
often, people want you to give them an answer, but what we really need to do is to be retrained to
You need to
listen
sense.
to our own instincts and our
Mhm.
own
Yeah.
sense of knowing. I mean, when you start to do that, you do start to notice, like you kind of, you'll enter a place and you can just feel the energies,
Yeah, and one of the best ways to start training your body, if you really are wanting to sense into that a little bit, is to get out to an environment that is low to no EMFs, like Martha did out there on her farm, like where I am at here. And trust me, I understand not everyone can afford to do that. I really, really do. And there's a lot of sacrifices you choose to make. I mean, I lived in a 34-foot RV for over a year so that I could, get this little place built that we're in now. But you make those choices and you walk your way through, but get, like literally do an off-grid or, mostly off-grid getaway. The other thing that also I find that helps restore and increase that sense more is actually doing the hot springs, which is like really getting your body remineralized, right? So that's another way of doing it. And then the big thing is in your prayer meditation time, breathing exercises, all of those things that move you from sympathetic overdrive to parasympathetic, because we spend way too much time in sympathetic overdrive now. It's almost like we've forgotten what it feels like to be in parasympathetic.
to be. So, this is sort of back to grounding maybe a little bit, but I don't know if it was you or somebody else I was talking to Brian Artis about, and he was talking about putting your hands in cold water.
Mhm.
And is the cold water, are you getting electrons from that? Is that what that is? Or
I think when he's talking about putting your hands in cold water, or when he's talking about, putting your feet in the snow, like out and ground in the snow, or doing a cold plunge, what you're doing is you're giving the body a shock. Okay. But it's like a controlled shock. It's going through the process of causing that controlled stress and then pulling off that controlled stress, at which point then the body will reset back into that parasympathetic.
okay, because I think whoever I was talking to about it was him talking about, I don't know whether it was being exposed to EMFs or what it was when he was doing presentations about all the stuff he's talking about, and like feeling like he was being attacked by frequency, and then somehow putting his hands in, like getting off stage and going to put his hands in cold water. And so I haven't had time to really
Yeah,
follow
but that's
him,
what
but
that would have been. It would have been literally, that's exactly what he's doing, is he's resetting. He's taking himself back to his baseline,
right.
and going back into parasympathetic. Dr. Henry Ely he did a phenomenal presentation here in Colorado just a few months ago. Joel Salatin was there too, from Polyface and things like that. And he was talking a lot about EMFs. And then Henry and I had an offline conversation that lasted about 30 minutes afterwards, talking about the levels of, we were way down the rabbit hole on the nanotechnology and all of that stuff, and what they're seeing now as a result of the EMFs. But I'll just say something that's really weird is that, like, I'll be driving somewhere and there's like sections of road where I get no signal. And I always joke that's where I get my downloads. Like a lot of those creative thoughts and answers that I've been, to questions I've been asking will all of a sudden drop in my head, and it's always in those same places. So I think there is something to the fact that all of the frequencies around us constantly bombard us, help keep us from having clarity.
Yep. Well, on that happy note, we've come to the end of our time. We haven't talked much about the microbiome or the Sugar Shift Challenge, but I mean, the Sugar Shift Challenge really is all about education and
I'm eating the cheese, Sugar Shift cheese all the time. The best cheese ever.
I want to make mine into cheese. I am actually going to start doing a lot more fermentation recipes and fermentation kind of from around the world, and where to get cultures and some of that in some of my blog posts, because I get a lot of questions from people who are looking for different strains from different places, and they don't know where to get them. And there actually are some government sources where you can get cultures to start stuff.
Okay. Do you know where I'm sorry.
You've got some background noise or something.
I can't hear Martha because you've got background noise. Sorry.
Yeah. There we go.
Thank you.
Martha, maybe you know where to find, let me see, what is this? LCS with this Kasei Shirota?
So KCS Shirota is the strain that is from Yakult.
Yeah, I know. I made a yogurt. It's so sweet. It's delicious, but it's very sweet.
Well, I think because it's a single strain, the reason why it's sweet is because the KCS Shirota has the little jar, has a lot of sugar in it.
This Yakult is in the small bottle, 18 grams of sugar.
Right. So you could either start your yogurt don't use the whole container.
Maybe not use the whole container, yeah.
Be a lot less sweet. And then, make a child batch, and you'll start to probably not have that sweetness. But that's a great strain for
it's
anyone.
Fantastic strain, and there is research recently which is I'm interested in. People that stay on this probiotic for 6 months got less arthritis pain compared to the placebo group. So it was a serious research, as serious as can be.
They're actually, I think, now doing some research in Parkinson's. I talked to the company, it's probably been 5 years ago, at a conference I went to at Harvard, and that particular strain of bacteria breaks down phenylalanine. And I actually think Parkinson's is complicated, but there's definitely a percentage of people with Parkinson's who cannot properly metabolize phenylalanine. It's like an inborn error of metabolism. And so essentially, if you know what PKU is, they have to be on a phenylalanine free diet, these kids that they identify now. But I think actually you could eat protein and just have that Casei shirota and be able to break down the phenylalanine, because I think a lot of these monogenic or inborn errors of metabolism are actually loss of the microbes in your gut that perform those functions as a primary function.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started eating it. Actually, it's delicious, and I don't think it's a big idea, a big trouble that is so sweet, because I fermented it for how long? 30 hours. So it's not horribly sweet, but I don't eat anything like that. But maybe that's part of the thing. I don't know where in the research where they got this bacteria from. Maybe it was from Yakult itself.
Who did you get your starter from?
From Yakult.
Oh yeah, I mean, the company that owns that, they've had that strain for a long time, and they've done a lot of research on it.
Well, maybe they have it not as a drink, but I don't know where to find it rather than Yakult.
I don't think they have. You might be able to find it in Japan in the capsule, but I don't think so. I think that's their primary product, is the liquid. But I did actually post a little thing here for the USDA's NREL. That is a place where you can find cultures.
I don't think they have this one.
They have, let's see, open collection policy strains deposit spreadsheet. Let's see. Oh, no, that's how you fill it out to request one. Okay. I don't know. I'd have to go in here. Raul knows how to go in here because we've been in here. They have some patented strains. They have like we deposited our strains here. So our strains are in the.
I pretended that I'm researcher group, and I got witch bacillus coagulants from them. It was not available anywhere but over there, and they sent me some.
You got it from who?
From United, the same group, I think, that you said.
Oh, INRO. I'm just looking in their database collection. Let's see. I see they have Lactobacillus casei Kluver.
Yeah, but not Shirota. And the research is about Shirota. I couldn't find anywhere except the cool thing. But
like a lot of times what I do, if I can't find a strain, like we look up the genome of the strain. So I'm sure that the genome of Shirota is probably published somewhere. Or, I mean, not everybody can do this, but we could kind of do that. We send it off and get it sequenced, and then we compare it to strains, and we look for the active genes in the strain, and see if we can find another casei that's very similar.
Oh, if you can do this, that will be great. Otherwise, I'm going to eat sweet yogurt.
But yeah, it's Casey Asheroto is a very nice strain. So I don't know if anybody else had any strain questions, but I thought there was one other. Was there one more hand up? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah. It's not about microbes, so it was about the EMFs. I bought an EMF home bundle from a practitioner here, and I always question whether I'm being sold
A bundle?
a bundle. There you go. It's from EMF Solutions, and it's just something that you clamp on your electric box by your electric box outside to block. I guess does that correct the dirty electricity? I don't know.
I don't know about that. I did get a copper ring.
Uh-huh.
It's about this big that I have over my electric box out back. But I actually pay. I also, my electric company wanted to put in. So one of the other things that makes it worse is the smart meters. And I actually pay, if you can believe this, $100 a month to have my meter read in person.
I bet.
Oh, wow. I'm pretty sure I have a smart meter on my home. Yeah.
And, they came out here and they were getting ready to do something. I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, no, I don't want a smart meter. And they're like, and of course, I live out in the country, up a road between two gates. So, it does. And they send a truck with two guys, and it probably takes them 35 minutes to drive all the way out here and read my meter. So, okay. But,
$100. Wow.
So
I'm
I
out in
have
the
a
middle of
question about that. Where is your meter located?
It's
on the back of my bedroom, it's on the
No,
wall.
Okay.
it's by my
Okay.
garage, which is on the same wall as my bedroom.
Okay, so this is the reason why I'm asking the question. So like I've got a smart meter on mine, but it's out on a pole away from my house.
Uh-huh.
And so you just put the shield around it. And I don't care
Oh,
because of where it's located.
No,
So
mine's it's right up against the house. But I did put
mine's against the house also.
until they turned the smart meter off, I had it like covered in all kinds of stuff when they came out. And it still has the copper ring around it, even though it's not a smart meter anymore.
So note to everyone, if you ever are in a possibility where you're building your own house, put it on a pole away from the house. You won't have the problem.
I don't think they'll come and put it on a pole now, will they? Is
Yeah,
there
they
anything else
can.
you can do?
Yeah, no, you can put it on a pole, and of course you can paint the inside of the wall, and then you can also put the shielding around it. But one of the biggest issues I've been seeing, particularly with houses that are in a neighborhood, is that to read the water meter, they're actually putting the signal for the water meter in the basement of the house. And so the
Oh.
majority of the water meters are actually right there next to your hot water tank and all that type of stuff in the actual house, at which point then it's broadcasting through the house to get out, and it
Oh, wow.
depends on where your bedroom is in relation to that. Now that is an absolute train wreck.
No, my water, I live in Texas. We don't have basements. So
Yeah.
my water meter is out in the front of the house.
Yeah.
But it's just the electric smart meter that's on my home.
Right.
So I buy products that remediate that to shield it.
You can shield it. There's paint that you can paint inside on the inside wall that would shield it. So like Martha, if you wanted to, you could literally, either use a plate, a metal, plate, or the shielding. You could literally use the silver fabric. You could use paint. There's all sorts of ways you could just block that wall, and then you could take your little meter to read whether or not it's effective. If you want to save
Maybe
$100
just
a month,
foil.
With
I
my
don't know.
meter, I can see like
foil.
where the window, so you can see the different, because I have a log cabin, the walls are very dense. So I can see that things are not getting through the wall per se, but the window is right there. And you can see a dramatic change from the wall, from the base below the window up to the window.
There's shielding that you can actually put on your window.
Mm.
So I can send you information on that because there's shielding you can actually put on your window that might work well enough for you if you actually wanted to get away from them coming out and reading your meter and charging you $100 a month to read your meter.
I think I'm okay with it right now.
Okay.
So may I ask, what exactly are you feeling if you get exposed to those waves?
You're asking what I feel?
Yeah.
Me personally,
Yeah, people like you that think very
I
sensitive.
I will find that I start to feel a little disoriented. I'll get a little dizzy. My thoughts won't complete as well. I
Really?
start feeling a little anxious, agitated, like I'm trapped and something's wrong and I want to run away.
I see.
I don't
Yeah.
have it that intense, but I do have all those symptoms. I live in a small in the neighborhood where I'm being bombarded by everybody's Wi-Fi's and
Yeah, the best advice I can give, that's the least expensive to start with is get your Aries Tech, start there. That's where I tell everyone start with your Aries Tech.
What do you
and you
do
just
about the
carry it, you
moon?
like put it in a pocket and you carry it with you all the time.
Yeah. So I've got one. This one goes like 30 feet around you. I've got a big one that I actually just keep here in my house.
I have a little one. They have ones that you put on your phone. You can put on your phone.
Is this a
That's
good
the big one.
solution for the moon as well?
Moon?
Yeah. That's the only thing that bothers me, the moon, the full moon.
Oh, well, Toby, I wonder if what you're actually, is it that or could you be dealing with parasites? Because parasites are massively active during the full
They're
moon.
very active during the full moon. You probably need a parasite cleanse.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, and there's a lot of ways to do parasite cleanse out there.
Well, I have 2 dogs. Maybe I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
if you've got dogs, if you have a pulse, you have parasites. Everyone's got parasites. It's just a matter of how bad they are.
Right.
So
What should
if
I
you've
do?
got
How do I
dogs-
test for this?
So this thing that I bought that I'm going to hang on my electric pole outside, is that really effective?
Well, it depends on what it is regarding that. But regarding the parasites,
Okay.
if you have, I would have to see what it is you have, Mary. But Toby, regarding the parasites, the answer to parasites is you just treat for them. And there's multiple ways to do that. Martha has all sorts of protocols I'm sure she can share with you.
Really?
That would be very helpful. Well, yeah, she's dealt with parasites. But the one I tend to refer people to just because it's so easy is Cellcore Biosciences because it's complete. Okay, because so a lot of people will say, oh, do some wormwood, do some ivermectin, do this, do that, or whatever. But what they don't understand is that you have to hit the parasites from multiple angles and that there's multiple species. They don't all respond to the same thing. So one of the things that Cellcore has done very well is mapped out an entire protocol that supports the body, builds the body up, and does the parasite removal in such a way that they don't get thrashed. And again, full disclosure, I'm a Cellcore practitioner. I've been with them since the beginning. So if anyone wants to do Cellcore, I can share my code with them. And what I do with people, unlike all the other Cellcore practitioners, is I actually will text them and email back and forth with them any support they need as they're going through their protocols if they have questions. But the protocol that I would do is I would just do the full moon protocol. And we do a full moon protocol where literally the week of the full moon, we just have people, what I'll do is I'll have people treat for a solid 30 days. And then I'll have them go to just doing the week of the full moon each month. And so that we catch the eggs as they're hatching.
What is hacking?
They're
Oh my
hatching.
God.
Yeah, when they're hatching.
Yeah, so we catch
happens
the eggs as they hatch.
So with a parasite, when you treat a parasite and they die, they send out a signal. It sends out a signal that causes the eggs to hatch. So
Yep.
you have to do it in cycles. These are actually, I know you guys laugh at me, but
No. Mm-mm.
What is it?
so this is actually wormwood. No, this is black walnut. Sorry, this
Yeah.
is black walnut from walnut trees on my property.
Perfect.
I made my own walnut tincture. The other thing I will tell you, black walnut has something called jugulins in it. It kills lots of stuff, and it also has a lot of minerals.
And the other thing that Martha's doing, because she's pulled it off of her property, is in nature, the way, it's like nature was designed, is that we were designed to exist in nature and for nature to provide us the tools that we needed around us to support us. And so by Martha doing what she's doing right there from her property, there's a quantum energy physics component to what she's doing that is symbiotic with the land that she's living in. And it doesn't get any better than that. That's just optimal.
No, and
Yeah.
this is actually the wormwood. And I tell you my crazy little story about wormwood. Wormwood, to plant it is these tiny, the seeds are tiny, tiny. They are like little specks. And I had planted them in my garden boxes in Colorado and they didn't come up. And they didn't come up and they didn't come up and I didn't plant them anymore. And two things came up in my backyard at the beginning of COVID. The wormwood plants came up in my boxes and I had planted them like 3 years before. And I had wormwood plants everywhere. And then dandelions. I didn't have any dandelions in my backyard. And my entire backyard was covered in dandelions. And I was like, why is my backyard covered in dandelions? There must be a message here. And of course, dandelion root and
Liver.
tinctures are also very, very good for detoxification and stuff. And so anyway, I brought my wormwood plants here and I grow wormwood in my front yard. And this is probably enough for, everybody on this phone call and then some. Same here.
So the other thing that's really cool, Martha, is it's interesting you bring that up. For me, it was mullein. My entire property was covered in mullein. And it was, of course, just as we went into that whole RSV thing. And my property was covered in mullein. And of course, mullei's very good for the lungs.
I have plantain all over my field out here. And plantain is very high in vitamin C, but also it's you can make
Plantains?
no, not the banana plantains. It's a weed. It's a weed called plantain.
Okay.
It's like a flat broadleaf weed. And
it's also extremely effective for insect bites and stings.
That's my bites and stings. And John actually, while I was out of town, had gotten bitten by a spider on his leg, and he had this like big red welt. And I got home, and he had gone to the ER, and they wanted him to take antibiotics and stuff. And I was like, "Ooh, don't take antibiotics." And I basically went out, picked a bunch of plantain, and mixed it with diatomaceous earth, and made a poultice out of it, and put it on him. And within 2 hours, all the red was drawn out of it, all the poison was out of it, and his leg was healing again. So, and my brother was always complaining about the plantain, and I was like, "There's a reason why that plantain is here."
Wow.
But you have to pay attention to it. So, and one last crazy plant story from Martha's property, because we have a lot of hemlock on our property. Well, hemlock is poison.
Right.
And that's basically how Socrates killed himself, with a tea made of hemlock. But it's an alkaloid. And I have been looking at and studying alkaloids for probably 7 or 8 years. And a lot of the medicines are alkaloids. And so I still have a feeling there's a reason why the hemlock's here, but I'm not going to be eating it or anything.
Well, homeopathic dosage, Martha, you could turn it into a homeopathy. And that could be really good with that hemlock.
Yeah.
Because we do use it homeopathically quite a bit. And if you want, and a 6C is not that hard to make. But it's used. Oh, wow, Martha, you didn't know this. I bet. Oh, wow.
Probably not.
Hemlock homeopathically was used for types of paralysis, slowness, rigidity, both mental and physical.
I think
Wow.
I might have looked at some of those properties at one point because I kept thinking there's got to be something in this for John, but you know.
That's probably where it was at. It was probably there. But absolutely, you don't want to do it raw.
Yeah, well, so my crazy hemlock story. So we have a closed tractor that my brother does most of the mowing in that has an air conditioner and all this stuff. But we have like an open, you know, you're just riding on the tractor. And when the fancy tractor is broken, sometimes he'll do stuff with the other tractor. And he decided to mow, not this past summer, but the summer before, this section, and it had a bunch of hemlock, and he was mowing in the open tractor. And I hadn't heard from him in a while, and so finally I went over there. It had been like a day and a half, and I go, and he had just gotten up, and I was like, "What? Where have you been?" And he goes, "Oh, I mowed yesterday, and I mowed a bunch of hemlock, and I felt awful, and I've been in bed for like 12 hours." And I'm like, "You poisoned yourself."
Oh my God.
Because, you know, you can breathe those things in through the air as you're cutting them. So
Not a good thing.
So I have a microbiome question quickly. So that wormwood and the black walnut liquids that you had, so those are all okay, and they won't to ingest, and they won't negatively impact your microbiome?
well, I mean, you're going to use them as a small dose tincture, like, you know,
Right.
a few drops.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'd have to look at the biochemistry with like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, but I think I looked at something related to bifidobacteria with, so the wormwood plant is, it is artemisinin.
Artemisium, yeah.
Artemisia. And that's actually, I think, connected to ivermectin. Isn't it, Pam?
I believe so.
And
I
so
believe so.
ivermectin,
So using the Artemisia is actually the direction that Dr. Henry Ely, Ed Group, and that group is, those guys are pursuing right now. They're using a lot of Artemisia and all the stuff that they're putting together.
So it's like that, because the Nobel Prize was awarded for ivermectin and artemisinin, and I think artemisinin comes from the Artemisia plant, if I'm not.
Hey, Martha, just for future, in case your brother does something stupid, I just sent you the article on the antidote for hemlock poisoning. Just in case. You may want to have some stuff on hand.
so the ivermectin then doesn't negatively impact your microbiome.
Well, ivermectin actually increases bifidobacteria. So
Excellent. Okay.
if you look at the research of Sabine Hazan, and I'd like to have her on.
Oh yeah, she's great.
She's actually a pretty good friend of mine. But her research actually showed that the COVID vaccine, both of those kill bifidobacteria specifically.
Right.
They destroy bifidobacteria. But ivermectin actually increases bifidobacteria.
Excellent. Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been doing, because I've had a lot of people constantly trying to get ivermectin from me, and of course you can get ivermectin, you can order it yourself, but everyone's constantly trying to get ivermectin from me, and of course I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to put out there that I'm going to give you ivermectin because I don't want to deal with the state of Colorado,
Yeah.
and all the garbage that goes on there. But, you know, Martha just gave you some really, really good tips here. Have bifidobacteria, make it a part, you know, people who had high levels of bifidobacteria did not have severe COVID. So get those
I never
levels
got
up
COVID.
now,
I never
right?
got COVID, period.
Yeah.
Well, sugar shift.
There you go.
The bifidobacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get
And
that
I didn't-
bifido up, number one. Number two, the other thing that is really, really helpful is get the Artemisia on board and just continually go after parasites. Okay, because parasites multiply extremely rapidly in the presence of electromagnetic frequencies. And we're all being bombarded by these EMFs. Mold also multiplies rapidly in the presence of EMFs. So, you know, doing these things of going after parasites, just kind of gently keeping after it and keeping the bifidobacteria high, culturing all your own stuff, grow your own food as much as you possibly can.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll avoid those issues.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering because I took, when my husband, he got the Delta
Right.
COVID, and neither one of us took the shot. And so I took ivermectin when I was taking care of him, and I never got it. But I never had heard whether or not there was any negative to your microbiome with ivermectin. So that's why I asked.
There was a negative that was reported that doesn't apply to any of us in our age and stage of life that are on this call. But there is a negative that was reported regarding taking down the fertility level of particularly young men. I have not been able to run that, you know, all the way down the rabbit hole, but it is a caution point regarding young men for ivermectin.
Okay.
That it reduces fertility.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's accurate or not, because I haven't had the chance to run it down, but it is. Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, and here's the other thing. If you can get your bifidobacteria levels up other ways and just avoid it, it's much better to do that anyways because of all the additional benefit that you're getting
Right.
from the bifidobacteria. And then the other thing that we've been doing is this is Nutrimedix dandelion. Now, this is different than dandelion that you get other places. This is specifically the Nutrimedix dandelion. And the reason why it's specifically the Nutrimedix dandelion is this is plasma charged with all of the stuff that's going on right now. I mean, I'm finding I love a lot of this, and I don't want to get political. I'm loving a lot of the shifting I'm seeing. By the way, RFK Maha, he's supposed to be going through confirmation tomorrow. So absolutely, if you get the chance, go to Stand for Health Freedom and note to your representative, yes, we want to see him in. But there's a component that I've picked up on, which is all gain of function testing has stopped except for bird flu. And this has me a little concerned.
I heard they were wanting to give them birds vaccines.
That's already happening.
Yeah.
That's already happening. And there's a concern based upon Merrick's. And what's happened with Merrick's in history is the fact that if you had a bird that was given Merrick's and all the baby chicks are sprayed before they're shipped out, which is why you don't want your chickens to come from a factory. But if the birds that were given Merrick's came across a bird that was not given Merrick's, the bird that was not given the Merrick's vaccine would get sick and possibly in high lethality of death. So those that have had Merrick's vaccine actually are dangerous to those who've not had Merrick's vaccine. And of course, I don't want to make any comments about, well, what are we doing with everything that we're doing with the human population? But that's okay. We won't go there.
Pam, I have a question. Do you know as far as which of the parasite things, if they treat Giardia?
That would probably be more of a Martha question for specificity than me.
Okay.
I will tell you that I have had a client in the past who had Giardia, and I put him on the cell core protocol, and he did resolve. But we just did the general protocol, kind of hit things intensely. from all the things. And also, I think we did rectal insufflation ozone, which works beautifully.
It's actually from my dogs.
Oh,
Well, if you just back to the natural, I mean, the black walnut and wormwood
be
can help
careful.
with that.
Just look up to make sure that your breed of dog can
Can
have
do it.
those items, because
No,
like
they-
shepherds, if you give ivermectin to a shepherd, you'll kill them. They cannot have
but
ivermectin.
It's not the shepherds as much as it is the border collies.
I
I
probably
have
would just take
I've
it to the vet and have them give you a course of whatever it is they're going to treat the dog for Giardia.
You can do
I
that
have
too.
I have a degree in veterinary medicine. So,
Oh, cool.
but I was just like, I know, like I've treated them with Panicure, and I've also treated ivermectin, and I've treated them with I can't remember the other name, Prazi something or other, for tapeworms and whatever. But I just
So you're
wondered,
saying that shepherds can have ivermectin? Because my gosh, I have been threatened within an inch of my life from every veterinarian to never give ivermectin to my shepherds.
you know what? I've been out of the business for a long time. But I always was under the impression it was border collies because I had border collies. I mean, I
Okay,
had
hey,
shepherds too.
here's what they give to dogs according to my just doing a grok on it.
Yeah.
Metronidazole for Giardia and
Flagyl.
fenbendazole.
That's Flagyl.
Yeah, it is the parental, the Flagyl. Have you tried those?
Well, the thing about Flagyl, like my one dog got overdosed with Flagyl at the beginning, and so has always had issues because I, probably killed off. Well, not me necessarily, but he was a rescue dog. So I think he kind of wiped out his microbiome, and I'm still working on it. But he's 15, and so I can't tell if he's actually got parasites at this point, or because they come back negative. Like when you test him for Giardia and Coccidia, it usually comes back negative. Because
What are you doing to support his gut microbiome? I mean, Martha's products would be great for him.
Well, I've told Martha in the past, I have a 17-year-old pug that I've brought back from the Rainbow Bridge about 5 times with ideal immunity. And making yogurt out of ideal immunity.
With ideal immunity, really?
Yeah.
Ideal immunity, and also use True Bifido.
Wow.
Nice.
So, and I make the yogurt, and then I take like desiccated liver capsules and open them up and dump them in there to make everybody want to eat yogurt.
Are you also giving him omega-3s and maybe
I
a little bit of ginger? Because they'll reduce the amount of Giardia trophocytes.
Yeah, I haven't tried ginger. I've tried giving them omega-3s and whatever, but I bought it from like a specialty person because my one dog was going to the chiropractor on a weekly basis, and they sell a lot of that kind of stuff. So I tried a couple different kinds of their fish oil, and I can't get anybody to eat it unless it's like a fight to take a syringe and like squirt it down everybody's throat.
Okay.
They're not-
Since we're
I
all,
give them the fish skin usually.
Yes, when I have fish, they like salmon, whatever.
Yeah.
this is
Oh.
a great educational podcast from the American Society of Microbiology.
Cool.
They have an
Oh my gosh.
They have an entire series. Actually, I started, when I started the company 10 years ago, actually before I started the company, but I started listening to their This Week in Virology podcast. They have This Week in Virology, This Week in Microbiology, and they had This Week in Parasites. Then they added This Week in Evolutionary Biology, and This Week in Immunology, and This Week in, now they have neurology or neuroscience or something. And it's interesting because they go, they discuss like a paper. Well, the Parasites podcast is kind of wild and crazy because they will discuss like a case that was hard to diagnose or something. But like I learned about Toxoplasma gondii, which has been associated with Parkinson's, and they had a 2-part series, and I was able to map out all the different things about it that overlapped with Parkinson's from learning from that podcast. The other ones actually take a scientific paper or two and kind of dissect the papers. Sometimes they get a little too political. I don't like, and they always talk about the weather at the beginning, so you can fast forward through that. But anyway, if you want to learn more about microbes, parasites, any of that stuff, it's a great resource, and it's put on by the American Society of Microbiology. And so
Kevin just responded.
anyway, that's a resource. And Kevin says he's not piping in here, but he has spent time with Border Collie Rescue, and ivermectin is a no-no in collies and shelties.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I only dealt with it from like the Border Collies and Shelties, Collies, because I knew I couldn't use it on mine.
But hey, Martha, you've got an area where you need to start grabbing testimonials regarding these animals and then release an animal product line.
I told her that. I told her last year.
I know.
Yes, I gotta
know.
tell you, people are nuts over their animals.
Oh my
I
God.
know.
I was doing
So
doing so many things for the dog because my daughter it started in 2018 and she was in nursing school and she was like, you better not let that dog die. Well, I'm in the middle of finals. So I was like,
Okay, well, Norma Jean, I'm going to get you to do a testimonial for Ideal Immunity
okay.
for your dog, and I'm going to make a
My
Ideal.
dogs are eating sugar shift. Yeah,
And Paula, you use Sugar Shift, don't you? With your, I see your
absolutely.
dogs eating the
Yes,
yogurt.
yes. Sugar shift cheese, sugar shift yogurt.
And what we need to do is start putting the recipes out there, Martha, using, like what Toby's found and things like that. But go ahead and literally start putting the recipes out there. And Martha, I'll share this with you when you and I talk next, because you're talking about building out your coursework and everything else. I've got a site that I'm going to take you into for benchmarking that I think will really speed a lot of this up for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Hey, Martha, did you ever, did anything ever come of the dextrose glucose?
Tess.
Okay,
experiment?
so I'm still doing the experiment, but I had to stop and start over because I got snowed in here for 12 days and I couldn't get my dextrose. So, and I tried doing it with the Smarties, but Smarties have a lot of other gross ingredients. So anyway, so I started it back over, but I'm now doing it with 3 other people now. One of them is up to 7 tablespoons 3 times a day, which seems like a crazy amount. But what I have noticed, so I take the dextrose, and if I take I'm going to say a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute walk, and I come back, my blood sugar will be like in the 80s.
I mean, my issue is
And how much are you taking of the dextrose?
Well, right now I'm up to 4 tablespoons 3 times a day. But here's here's what I'm looking at. He does a 6-month protocol. If you look at red blood cells take about 120 days for you to get a whole nother cycle of red blood cells. The only fuel that red blood cells use is glucose, dextrose glucose. Red blood cells use glycolysis for energy production with glucose. And red blood cells also have what's called the GLUT1 transporter, which is also the glucose transporter of the brain. His focus is on resetting the brain, but I think it's actually resetting the red blood cells. So what I'm looking at right now, when we're under stress, we actually start, so there's called stress erythrocyte production. And so you start to make red blood cells, not in the bone marrow, but in the liver and the spleen. And those are made in a bolus, and they behave differently than steady state red blood cells. So that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at that, and I'm also trying to tie that back to Robert O. Becker's work on blood cells as and basically the body electric. So I know it sounds like kind of crazy.
My whole thing is like I finally had lab work done after like 5 years, but my fasting glucose and my insulin levels are like weight, I don't mean like crazy high, but over 100. And
Well, don't you have the
and I'm, I do Dr. Davis's wheat belly.
But see, I think what happens is, so you have two different methods of making energy. So one is, you're making energy in your red blood cells from glycolysis. Well, guess what? Most of the cells in your body are red blood cells. 25 trillion of the 30 trillion cells in your body are red blood cells. And then you're making energy. You're getting glucose into the blood from gluconeogenesis. It's coming from the liver. But there's a lot more steps in that process. It's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more places for it to get broken. There's a lot more enzymes involved. Over here, if you have glucose, but our food supply doesn't have glucose in it anymore. The fruits have been engineered to have more fructose than, like all the food is cooked with sucrose, which is 50% glucose, 50% dextrose. That's a disaccharide. It requires an enzyme to break it down before it can do what it needs to do. And then, we're being told load up vitamin C. Well, guess what vitamin C does? It stops all those enzymes.
I don't do vitamin C.
Anyway.
So the thing is,
I don't either. And I always thought I was weird for that.
I've been doing.
How do I fix this? That's why I'm really interested in your glucose dextrose thing. If
I
that's
would recommend Norma Jean, I would recommend getting his book, Glucose 101, David Stevens, Stepgens. Like read it. It makes a lot of sense to me, especially since I started looking back at the red blood cells and glycolysis, because that's something that I was looking at. I've been looking at in this book. Let's see if I can find it.
Norma Jean, do you feed your dogs raw? Meat?
raw.
Yeah.
I did for a while, but now I switched to gently cooked because every time I would feed them raw beef, I would have problems with diarrhea being worked.
Yeah, I'm having an issue finding chicken parts now.
Yeah, you're gonna have an issue finding a lot of stuff coming up.
I'd be happy if I could find pigs.
Basically the glucose, the glycolysis switch for some time, and so I am. Yep, that's the book.
Yeah.
And so far, I think Chris has definitely seen a reduction in her symptoms, joint pain and all of that. What I can tell you is, like, I have endless energy, like endless energy. Now, I did stop taking my blood sugar all the time, but what I did start to do for a few periods is just see, okay, how quickly is my body reacting and getting it back down to the 80s where, it's kind of in a steady state, and that seems to be working just fine. And so I take it 3 times a day. I took my last bunch of it at like 5 o'clock because I don't want to be like so energetic at bedtime. But I think it just takes that 6-month period to reset your red blood cells. And that, he's not talking about that, but it's somehow resetting the GLUT1 transporter, which is also the GLUT1 transporter is what's highly upregulated in fetal hemoglobin.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been reading the book, but I think it's way above my head. I'm not getting it. So,
Did you read the book?
I'm working on it. Yeah.
He does have another book that's less technical, but I wanted the technical book.
Yeah, I've been reading it. I'm more than halfway finished. I'm getting, yeah.
But
I
what,
guess I'm still concerned is it not going to be like Dr. Davis always talks about AGEs? Does it not trigger AGEs?
dextrose is not going to it doesn't glycate like the other sugars.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. And I'm on a carnivore diet, so I don't know how that would work with my carnivore diet.
Well, it's interesting because I did read an article somewhere about, and this is interesting. So, when you're on a highly ketogenic diet, sometimes you can get ketoacidosis. So this Amish practitioner that I've been talking to about it, who's also testing it, when the cows get ketoacidosis, they give them dextrose.
But dextrose is in my sausages.
Okay.
So if you're a carnivore,
Well, I
that's
don't
good.
eat sausages. I can't
Eat sausages.
I'm on a very limited diet because of histamine and oxalates, but histamines mainly. So I'm eating lamb and beef. That's it. It's just, and I was
Lamb is
thinking,
good.
And Pamela, I just wanted to clarify so that I was looking for the correct website for that 5-wave. So is it Healthy Wave is the right company or it's not the right company?
Yeah, Healthy Wave is the correct company.
Okay, great.
I have the link. I put the link in the
It's
chat.
in the chat.
Yeah, Martha
No, but
put the
after
link
I
in the
get done with
chat.
the
And
call, I
Martha,
can't get to it.
so you
What?
forwarded the link that I gave you because that'll give them
Yeah,
an
I put the
additional,
link in.
and you can actually stack those discounts. So like, let's say they did have a mat that you wanted that was in their 20% off. They'll still take an additional, I think 10% off using the link that I gave you.
Okay,
So
I'm trying to
it's
find Martha
if you look at in the chat.
Oh,
at
chat.
7
There's the chat.
in the chat at 7:37 p.m. It says, here's the link, and it has Healthy Wave mat, and it has refer CNWR.
Okay, mine doesn't go that far. It goes to 639, 640. Why isn't it?
I don't know, because it should be all the way down.
Martha. So, when I ferment like kombucha, could I use dextrose?
I think that you could. Well, actually, I know that you can because I actually put it in. I put it in my kombucha, and that's actually. This is actually interesting because. This is my tart cherry kombucha.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm taking my dextrose, sometimes I got to have some liquid to,
Oh, here it is.
But when I mix, so I'll pour a little bit of this in a cup and I add the dextrose and it fizzes like crazy.
Martha, it was the time zone change. That's why I don't have anything after. Because I'm in Wyoming.
Okay, so for you, it would be 5:37.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, and then Mary, you made a comment about oxalates and something, and I'm going to find something in my notebook that I wrote like years ago that I picked up and was looking through today. And okay. Oxalic acid at the enzyme level enhances herbicidal efficacy of glyphosate. Sources of oxalic acid are beet, greens, rhubarb, and spinach. It reacts with cationic amine surfactants. I have no idea what this means, but I wrote this down, and since you brought it up, I think I need to give it to you. And then it says oxalic acid and other polyvalent anions are good chelators, sequestering. So it's sequestering metals. I don't know, but it may be connected to glyphosate. Mary, you're on mute.
The oxalates chelate out all your minerals. So if you're eating spinach and drinking a glass of milk thinking you're going to get calcium, you're not going to get any calcium because the oxalate attaches to your calcium. Does it to all the minerals, calcium, potassium, all of them. So stop eating the spinach.
Yeah, I stopped as soon as, I don't know, when I read her book. I also stopped doing sweet potatoes.
Oh yeah, there's all of them. Yeah. I've eliminated all the vegetables. I'm hoping to be
So
able
sweet
to
potatoes
add.
are high in oxalates also?
What is?
Sweet potatoes, are they high in oxalates?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sweet
yeah,
potatoes.
yeah. Sally Norton's book, she just about killed herself because she thought sweet potatoes were healthy and she was eating a ton of them and it just about killed her.
Well,
I
I
grew about 50
give 'em to
pounds
the
one
dogs.
year of sweet potatoes and I ate them all myself over like 6 months period of time. I love sweet potatoes.
But that's only if you have that condition.
No, ma'am.
No,
No,
I'm just
ma'am.
saying, no, I'm telling Norma.
Oh. No,
So if
what
you-
do you-
I give it to
everybody who
dog
eats
for their-
high oxalate foods collect oxalates in their body. And they can give you all kinds of symptoms from arthritis to thyroid problems.
But you can also, at a certain point, you can eat a certain amount of oxalates and it doesn't do anything. It's when you get to a higher level.
If you
There's
eat more,
there's a presentation on oxalates too from
Debbie interviewed her too, and I read the book.
yeah,
No,
I've read it too.
I'm talking about, there was a presentation from a woman at Weston Price Foundation.
Oh, okay.
It's not the person you're talking about.
It's not Sally Norton.
No.
You mentioned it, I think, to me before, but I haven't had a chance to I couldn't find it at Weston Price.
Let me find the
The other
conference from-
person who I think probably talks about it though is the Healthy Homemaker. I think she covers oxalates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking it up right now, but
So
what I
oxalates,
found
if you eat
is-
more than 200 milligrams a day, your body stores it someplace. It just shoves it, can shove it into your lens of your eye, giving you cataracts. It can shove it into your muscles or your joints. And then when you stop eating them, you experience oxalate dumping. Every time you eat a big bowl of spinach, you're putting oxalates in some part of your body because your body can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the key is just not doing a lot and depending upon
Right.
your genome component and your methylation stuff and things like that, obviously you can increase and have issues and stuff. It's really back to all things in moderation. It really is. I mean, there's some good things from spinach, right? There's some good things from sweet potatoes, but if you are already experiencing health issues, stay away from it. But if you're not, you can probably have sweet potatoes once a week and be fine.
Yeah,
No,
but
variety
only if
is-
you eat a fourth of a cup of sweet potatoes. Because if you hit more than a fourth of a cup of a sweet potato, it will take you over the 200 milligrams for the day, including all your other stuff. And then you will deposit oxalates in your body.
So again, small amounts.
Who eats a quarter of a cup? I don't know. Anyway.
Pam,
So Martha, that's the book. Are you ever going to discuss this glucose 101 again?
I am, but I do not feel that I know enough to discuss it yet. And so I'm going through this process with, okay, I can't find the old, like everywhere I go is like is just the agenda from last year. I'll find the woman's, because I communicated with her about the oxalates. As far as glucose 101 goes, I am going to discuss it, but I want to get through a longer period of my own experimentation with it, I'll say. And I want to get Eli Hirschberger's feedback. He's the Amish practitioner, and Dr. Deborah and Chris Modrak are also doing it. And so we're meeting every couple of weeks to talk about our observations. And in between that, I'm really trying to dig into the red blood cells. And so I think that is really going to be a big key piece of the puzzle.
So if your body is making more red blood cells in your spleen and in your liver, is that going to increase your iron load, or is it going to?
Yeah. And they're going to come in a bolus. So
then does that mean you're
steady state? You're going to get like, which is interesting too, because I tried to explain one time. I had a blood test. I had blood drawn on a Thursday, and my hemoglobin was like 14.4. And I went to give blood on the following Tuesday, and my hemoglobin was 15.6. And I was like, how could that be? Well, then when I started, actually, I have Morley to thank for that, because he sent me the paper on stress red blood cell production. And then that sent me down like a whole nother lane of pulling all these papers and looking at it. And I was like, this is what is going on with pretty much everyone. We're under a huge amount of stress. Right. And, you know, while I do think low carb can be very beneficial from an anti-inflammatory diet, I also think some people take low carb to such an extreme that it puts the body under a tremendous amount of stress. And I wonder if in that state of stress, you're not making stress red blood cells.
Right. I kind of have wondered that, what the impact of, doing that low carb, because I mean, the only place I can think of that, like you were saying before about my red blood cells and my glucose levels and my insulin levels has to be coming from my liver and, from my body, not diet.
Two things.
Yeah.
There really is a benefit to low carb when it comes to dealing with cancer situations. Okay. Which is very specialized.
Yes.
Right. And then the second thing is, especially when we're talking about red blood cells, one of the most critical things to red blood cell health is preventing the rouleau effect, which again comes from the EMFs. So, get those EMFs out of the way so you're not dealing with that clumping rouleau type stuff, and that makes a significant difference. And I've actually seen that change with doing the live blood cell analysis.
White blood cell analysis?
Live blood cell.
Live blood cell
analysis.
How do you
the
do
dark
that?
field. Dark field.
So here's the paper I was reading that Morley sent me. Steady state erythropoiesis generates new erythrocytes at a constant rate, and it has an enormous productive capacity. This production is balanced by the removal of senescent erythrocytes by macrophages in the spleen and liver. Erythroid homeostasis is highly regulated to maintain sufficient erythrocytes for efficient oxygen delivery to tissues while avoiding viscosity problems associated with overproduction. However, there are times when this constant production of erythrocytes is inhibited or is inadequate. And at these times, erythroid output is increased to compensate for the loss of production. In some cases, increased steady-state erythropoiesis can offset the loss of erythrocytes, but in response to inflammation caused by infection or tissue damage, steady-state erythropoiesis is inhibited. To maintain homeostasis under these conditions, an alternative stress erythropoiesis pathway is activated. Emerging data suggests that BMP4 dependent stress erythropoiesis pathway is integrated into the inflammatory response and generates a bolus of new erythrocytes that maintains homeostasis until steady state erythropoiesis can resume. So if we think about the inflammatory state that we're in, whether it's EMFs or parasites or
Oxalates.
like all these things are inflammatory, and we're in this hyper-inflammatory, endotoxin. We're probably constantly in a state of stress erythropoiesis, which is what what I started looking at. And so then I was like, okay, well, how can you send a signal to your red blood cells that they don't have to be in a state of stress? And I was like, feed them. What do they need to be fed? They need to be fed glucose.
Yeah.
So you're using dextrose though, right? Yeah.
Which is good.
Dextrose is
What about honey?
No honey.
No, honey, it's got fructose in it, I think.
It's got stuff in it you don't need.
I need it. I love it.
Are you
Not
doing
everything we love
intermittent?
is good for us.
Are
What?
you doing intermittent fasting and not always the same, but staggering?
Who, me?
No, not so much staggering, but I definitely, I'm 1 or 2 meals a day.
So what I'm going to encourage is there's actually some really good research out there, particularly, in those that are postmenopausal, staggering the fasting.
Right.
So like doing a 24-hour fast, then, having a 12 hours fast and then an 18-hour fast, but just constantly switching it up has been shown to be really good from the autophagy standpoint. And also from, getting the body to constantly adapt, and the research shows it's really good at knocking down the cancer cells and preventing cancer and stuff like that. Yes.
For cancer specifically.
Good
Okay.
specifically for preventing cancer. There was, and of course, the parasite, the fenben, the metronidazole, that William Mackis's work, the metabolic shifting, Dr. Nasha Winter's work, all of that type of stuff. But one of the things that some of the people who've done extremely well using a strictly holistic approach, of course, light therapy is another part of it. Emotional detoxification is absolutely critical. But one of the really strong things that came through from the research was the variation of the fasting.
I'm starting a fasting program next week. Well, I already started. I do 23 and a meal and then nothing. And and that's going to be varied from between skipping a lunch or skipping a dinner or stuff like that.
Right.
So
And I'm starting this week.
And Pam, not to change the subject, but so you said you're a self-care practitioner.
I am.
So how would I?
I can send the link to Martha.
Okay.
So let me pull it up here. I'll send it to her. And if it's
and while
helpful,
you're doing that, Pamela, so are you, you're familiar with the Joe Tippins and also Kevin Jennings, their protocols? Okay.
very. And also William Mackis's protocol. I have all the details on William Mackis's protocols too.
I don't know. How do you
And there's
spell
a big difference between what Tippin was doing and what Mackis is doing. And I'm still working through what Mackis is doing. I love a lot of what he's doing, but his dosages are so high. They're so high. They're a little concerning. And I have to keep reminding myself that I'm talking to someone who was a medical radiologist and came from a traditional pharma background.
Oh, wow. Well, it seems like Kevin Henning's doses were higher too. Have you seen his?
I don't recall seeing Kevin's dosing, but Macus's dosing is 1.6 milligrams per kilogram for the ivermectin. Which of course I start getting concerned about visual changes at that level. And then with the Fenben, he's literally, instead of going with the 444 milligrams,
Yeah, or
he's-
222. Yeah, that Joe Tippin was doing.
yeah, that Joe Tippin's doing, he's literally doubling that.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't think. I mean, I'm trying to help my friend, and so this is her 4th round of ovarian cancer, and then it most recently went to her liver. And
Okay,
so
I'm gonna lovingly say something, and Martha knows this because Martha knows me really, really well.
Mhm.
You've got to get into the emotional. You've got to get into the trapped emotions. You've got to go through and get those released. And I don't know what her faith base is.
I know she's super duper Catholic.
Okay. I was gonna guess.
Mhm.
And Martha and I have had long conversations about this stuff, but when we're dealing with these situations where people are, how do I put this? Cancer is the gift you don't want, but it's a gift. And at the end of the day, the purpose is to bring alignment from my faith base with Christ. And to do that from a foundation of love. Okay. And what I find often happens, particularly with the Catholics, is that there's like this lack of completion of the Trinity between God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and a lack of understanding there, and guilt, and there's a layer there that's in between that's blocking them from real relationship.
Yeah.
And it turns into, there's this big issue of, if I just do everything right, it'll be okay. And the answer is, you have to submit, you have to release, you have to know that you're loved and that you're saved by grace.
Oh no, I think she is at that place, and she just
Okay,
went to
good.
Magic Maria, so she's, I mean, she was in a really good place after that.
Good.
But she's got a son getting married next month. She just doesn't want to. She doesn't want to.
So
Does she have fear? I mean, it's really almost impossible not to have fear. So don't take that wrong.
Oh,
But,
no. I think that's, no, I would. Yeah, I think she's afraid.
So
Yes, Martha.
Well, but I mean, on the other hand, she's
Martha's
Like-
trying to get your attention, guys.
sorry, Martha.
So there's actually a woman who is a customer of ours, that it's probably been a year and a half, 2 years since I've spoken to her. She recovered from stage 4 ovarian cancer. And the two things she told me was, one, sorry about the balloons, being at peace.
right.
So she was completely at peace with the outcome. Like she surrendered, which is kind of what Pam is saying, is surrender of, I am at peace with the outcome, at peace with myself, at peace with my relationship, in the, with God. And, and she used ginger. And I mean, it was crazy because the doctors basically
Oh, I
told
remember you talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah, they told her to go home and get her stuff in order. And she basically got real ginger ale, like real ginger ale with the live microbes, and ginger snaps, which, my God, that's cookies with sugar in them.
Sugar, yeah.
And like shaved ginger. And anyway, she was basically eating ginger all day long. And but I personally think that probably the biggest part of it was her being at total and complete peace, surrendered to whatever the outcome was. And it's been 10 years since that woman had cancer.
Amen.
Okay.
And I have her phone number, and I've reached out to her a few times and connected her with people, and
Mhm.
because she feels like that was her purpose that she was given, and she talks to people about how she found peace. And the other thing you might look at is Dr. Ben Edwards. Dr. Ben Edwards podcast. He like all the stuff he's talking about this year is his peace pillar and how to like find peace and wholeness. And
And
I
Martha, of course, that's the whole thing that Donnie does. That's the whole thing that we use Donnie for, is to do the emotional detox using the EVOX stuff too. Because there's a lot of people that, it's like it's right here and they can't see it, right? And then through the process of using the frequencies and stuff like that, we get it to where they can see it and then they can move through it. And then, of course, you've got, people like Martha, who is just very intuitive about it, who is able to do the prayer work and to do the clearing work on those that were around her that were needing support. And she did a beautiful job of walking through to clarity.
Mhm.
What did you say about that person's name, Martha, that you were?
her
Edwards?
name
Ben
is
Edwards.
Ben Edwards. So
Ben Edwards.
his podcast, if you look it up on YouTube, it's called You're the Cure.
Oh, okay.
And all of his episodes this year, because he had 4 pillars, it was like diet and exercise and,
Right.
but, and he had this peace pillar, but ultimately
That's a huge improvement for him, by the way.
the peace pillar, sort of the message he got was, you have this all turned upside down and you need to focus on the peace pillar. And so he has a couple of episodes that I really, really liked. But one is on wholeness, basically. What does it mean to be whole?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great one. And I mean, really, his whole series from this year that is focused on the peace pillar and how to, and if you think about like being at peace and staying calm in the storm, right now, it doesn't matter who you were for. We are in a very chaotic period of time that is going to be very stressful for everybody. So, especially if you're sick, but even if you're not sick, there's so many rapid changes coming at us, and so many things that, we look at and we're like, what?
Well, and then there's the other component of, depending upon where she lives, what type of level of electromagnetic frequency she has around her, whether or not she's around people that are shedding, because we know the shedding is very real.
Well,
there's multifacets.
Yeah, no, she had her her oncologist told her to take the vaccine. So she took, and she was in remission, and then that came back.
Well, then she's got to be detoxed from the vax, okay?
Mhm.
And the detox from the vax is a process, and it's going to include include multiple areas. One, physically detoxing it. 2, there's, how do I put this? If people understood what RNA was,
Right, exactly. Right.
and if they understood who created RNA and what happens when we do the modified RNA, man's RNA, basically we're basically saying, okay, God, your program wasn't right. We're going to install man's programming instead. There's and I'm not going to go, the woman's dealing with enough
I know.
guilt
Yeah,
to start
I
with,
know.
but there's a repentance process there that's very simple, that just says, forgive me and thank you, because you are the creator, not doing the guilt thing. Okay.
Right.
But
I'm
you
so
can
glad
start
I
with that repentance right there.
Yeah. Well, she's in a difficult situation too, because her husband is not, he's not 100% healthy either. And then, so, she's got a lot on her plate, and she just got stomach flu. So that's what she's getting over right now. So, Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm trying.
for all of
I-
it, like just being like calm in the storm
Hmm.
is, one of the best contributors to our health and the people that, that we care about. Like
Right.
if we can bring some sense of peace
Right.
to the equation, which is what I try to do here. But then sometimes we get off on all the, and we do talk about all these things that can impact us. And I want to make sure, one, that we don't get like overly focused on technology as our solution, because like ultimately standing in our own power and strength and peace is probably the best protection there is
Right.
to all of that. And so I think it's helpful to be aware of things that can affect you, but
What you
holding that,
focus on gets bigger.
holding that center of peace in the storm is,
Yeah, my next door neighbor is, I don't know, in her 70s, and she was just diagnosed like several months ago with ovarian cancer as well. And I'm, trying to get her into a more of a, I don't want to say a ketogenic diet, but a low carb diet. And
yeah.
I think she finished her last chemotherapy treatment supposedly on Monday. So trying to steer in the right direction, but
Do you
I'm not
have her on sugar shift, Norma? Because that is absolutely one of the things that is really important for someone like that.
Well, I made her a batch of sugar shift yogurt, and she basically brought it back to me and said, I can't eat this. I'm not a yogurt person. And I was just, I've done like a bunch of things like that, but she's not like,
She can take capsules though.
Exactly.
I should probably, go that route and try to talk to her again. But, she's just, I don't know. I don't want to say she's not a believer, because I gave her like a stack of books of like, this diet or that diet and all these different people. And I always send her like podcasts to listen to and whatever, but I don't know, I don't want to force myself on her.
But we had
Okay, guys, we're coming up on 3 hours, so we're an hour.
Hey, Martha, I gave you the Cellcore link.
Okay, let me.
Awesome.
Okay.
The links will work when you post the video, or no, this chat's not available, right?
I think that the chat transcribes, but if it doesn't transcribe, I have them in my text back and forth with Pam, and so I can add them into the summary if they're not in there. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's on my phone,
Thanks,
so I
Pam.
wasn't trying to chat directly into.
it's fine. It's probably better that I have it there, because this will transcribe the video, but I don't know that it actually transcribes the chat.
Okay, Martha, last question. So I know I had talked to you about the antibiotic antidote, because you had said that chemotherapy was like really a really super duper strong antibiotic. So, but you think sugar shift would be better for her now if she can?
That's a good. Well, I think sugar shift, because of the way it addresses glucose,
Okay.
which feeds cancer, maybe, but we're actually doing a little bit of a side study on antibiotic antidote improving heart rate variability, and I don't.
Oh, because of the people that had the success with the whatchamacallit? AFib.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Susan
so
Fox.
actually, that it was from my son, because he had to take antibiotics, and he has a heart rate monitor, and he started taking the antibiotic antidote, and he's like, "Mom, this makes my heart rate variability, like, look at my data." And so we're going to try to recruit a bunch of people to try it who have heart rate variability monitors, and see if we can't see what's going on there.
Okay, so it did help. So, but you think oh, and now Jen's got a question or a comment. So anyway,
Okay,
I'll get
this
on
is
to
the dead last question, Jen.
No question. Just HRV, that's one of my favorite topics. And
Yeah.
being in this post-surgery state, I would love to elevate my HRV, and I want to be part of that
Well,
antibiotic
I
experience.
have your address, so I'll just have
Yes.
Charlie send you a bottle.
Oh,
So.
thank you. I will keep meticulous data on that.
And of course, I'm assuming, Martha, you've already gone through all the things that raise HRV.
No, I have not. I'm just saying this is an observation of the product.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's a
Jen,
great.
the morning
No,
and the night thing are super critical for circadian rhythm. You
Yep.
know that.
I do.
Okay. The other thing that's really, really helpful with the HRV is literally doing the practice that's known as mindfulness, prayer, breathing, moving your body from sympathetic to parasympathetic. That
Yep.
will raise HRV. PEMF mats also raise HRV. Around 12 megahertz frequency if it's in the morning, and at night before you go to bed, 3 megahertz frequency. Okay. That also helps with HRV. And then those are the ones, of course, blue light blocking, red light therapy, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, watching the things, Martha's absolutely nailed it with watching the glucose levels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. I
keep the
appreciate
EMFs
that.
away. And keep away the EMFs.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Those
No,
are just-
I've been tracking HRV for years, and it was fascinating watching it plummet, like what surgery. I've never been a part of surgery or like this whole medical system issue. The Aura Ring has
Are you
been
doing cold showers? Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold? Because that's the other thing that will dramatically shift your HRV.
I was prior to surgery doing cold plunge, and
Too stressful
not
right
just
now.
I'm not supposed to submerge at all, which is annoying. But I look forward to getting back to that.
Well, you can do.
But yeah, I feel like
feet in hot water, feet in cold water.
I'm doing sauna, and I'm just trying to detox all the crap that's been in my system lately. But I'm watching my HRV slowly go up. I did have to take antibiotics, but I want everyone to know that with the restoration of L. reuteri and sugar shift, and then I had some ideal immunity, my bowel, like everything feels great. I feel like pretty hearty from that standpoint. But HRV has taken its time, so I'd love to see what the.
Okay, so I think I'll. So in our system, are you under your old name or are you under your new
I
name?
might be under Bain still.
Okay.
For the subscription, because I subscribe to Sugar Shift.
Yeah, I'll have to have them look it up and.
Thank you.
Okay, but yeah, it would be great to have that data because Charlie noticed it. I mean, it was immediate. It was like he took a capsule and it was immediate, and he took and then he didn't take a capsule for a day and it was bad again, and then he took a capsule and it was better again. So
And that was sugar shift.
No, that was antibiotic antidote.
That's great. That's great. And I see that Eva, is it Ava or Eva, wants to participate as well in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, Martha, if you want to put together a study, we could totally do that, and I'll have fun with it because I'll do it too because my HRV is flatlined.
Okay. Eva, are you in the system?
Her name is Eva Anthony. Can you see that?
Because I can just look up your account. Okay, I will send you something to try if you've got a, do you have a tracker? All right, so now I'm really going to wind it down because it's past my bedtime.
Okay. All right. Thanks
I love all
Thanks
of
for
you.
all the extra stuff.
You have to go to bed.
This was.
Thank you guys so
this was a
much.
great meeting.
Good night,
Pam,
everybody.
very nice to meet you, Pam.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.